Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Gambeto Gaming. Today I'm counting down again. Elementary school, second grade. I'm the kid that's not too good at counting backwards, but I'll do my best today. That's right, today we're counting down 6 canceled Mario games that I assume you guys don't know about. These are games that never had much of a life to begin with and were swept under the rug before the mainstream got a hold of it. But thanks to the good old internet, we now know about some of these dirty little secrets Miyamoto tried to hide in the depths of Nintendo's offices. Let's get started. Mario's Castle. Does the name Project Atlantis ring a bell with anyone? And no, I'm not talking about the resort in the Bahamas, okay? I'm talking about the sequel to the original Game Boy. This project predated the Game Boy Advance by several years, and rumors began popping up of the system's existence in the late 90s. It wouldn't be long before these rumors would stop though, because Nintendo ended up canning the system and the project altogether, likely pushing forward the development of the Game Boy Advance at the time. However, this project cancellation didn't come without a game announcement, or a potential game development behind it. That's right, a game known as Mario's Castle was to be announced around the announcement of the Game Boy Atlantis. There is very little known about the game other than its existence. If I had to guess, it was either going to be a classic Mario 2D platformer, kind of like Mario Land, but probably more advanced. Game Boy Advanced, if you will. Or it could have been a castle defense type game where you play as Mario defending his castle. But wait, wouldn't it be Peach's castle? I guess this indicates that Mario owns his own castle now? I mean, I guess Peach's castle did get abducted in that one Mario game, so I guess it makes more sense that Mario would have a, probably a backup castle for insurance purposes or something. Yeah, let's assume Mario took out a loan for his own castle, and this game might have been you trying to defend your home against waves and waves of Koopas and Goombas trying to rain down terror upon Mario's humble abode. The more and more I talk about this though, it's starting to sound like a Newgrounds game that was way too gory for no reason. New Super Mario Bros. Me. New Super Mario Bros. Me was a game that was shown off at Nintendo's E3 2011. This was also the first appearance of the Wii U, and this game was supposed to be the Ticket Tech demo item for the Wii U. This was due to an apparent push through the demo of the new off-the-TV gameplay feature the Wii U was introducing. This would allow you to basically take compatible games, which were very few, and play them solely on the low-resolution gamepad they packed in with this stupid-ass system, and set it on your huge HD TV where it looks wonderful. This idea would be later implemented to near perfection with the Nintendo Switch, but some would say the Wii U was paving the way for the mobile home console hybrids. I call it dog shit. Seeing that this tech was important for Nintendo to push at the time, as the Wii U didn't really have much else to offer, not even its own unique name, so they wanted to provide some sort of tech that would demonstrate just that, and thus we have New Super Mario Bros. Me. Along with a few other titles showing off the Wii U's capabilities, the most fleshed out one was definitely New Super Mario Bros. Me. This demo allowed players to play up to 5 levels in a 10-minute demo. This means players could play as much as they wanted up until the 10 minutes was up. The demo ended up featuring smaller beta levels for levels that would appear in New Super Mario Bros. U. For example, the level featuring an early version of the Spine Coaster would later be implemented into New Super Mario Bros. U as the course titled Thrilling Spine Coaster. Really hit the noggin for that one, didn't you, Miyamoto? Holy shit. The biggest difference between this tech demo and the final version of New Super Mario Bros. U was the ability to play as the Miis. We all know Miis, right? Yeah, they're the fucking stupid little avatars that Xbox and PlayStation tried to copy, but they were never as cool. And I'd say the days of the Miis are kind of over now, as Nintendo has kind of put them on the back burner. We see from them every once in a while. But back in the day, having Mii show up in your game meant you could technically have a version of anyone you ever wanted in your game. This was way more exciting on paper than in actual practice, as the Mii characters in games that they did make it in usually would be way more boring to play as versus the actual players in the game. Now that I think about it, I think it would have been really cool to play a full Mario game as Dr. Phil or some shit, right? I kind of wish they re-added this ability in New Super Mario Bros. U, maybe just as a 100% completion bonus or something. There are Miis that are playable in that game, but it's just in bonus mode, so it's kind of lame. This demo intended for players to run through the game as a choice between the normal Mario characters or whatever fucked up Mii creations you wanted. The Miis would even feature different costumes depending on which player number slot you would select. Player 1 would have a Mario costume, obviously. Player 2 is Luigi. Player 3 is Wario, which is pretty interesting. And let's just go ahead and throw up a multiple choice for what we think Player 4 skin is going to be. Alright, let's see. Okay, well, I see what I think it is. It's obviously C, right? I mean, Wario was here, so for sure, right? Yeah. What? It's Blue Mario? What the fuck? Yeah, Ice Mario is the 4th player skin. So go fuck yourself, Waluigi, once again. Overall, I think this tech demo was pretty promising, and I also think most of what made it good was implemented into New Super Mario Bros. U, but I still want the ability to fight Bowser mano a mano as Donkey Kong. You know, the Donkey Kong me. But now we're just talking Smash Brothers, really? Mario Motors. Mario Motors may have lived up to be the Gran Turismo Mario Kart hybrid nobody's ever asked for ever and ever will. Mario Motors was meant to be a spin-off title of the Mario Kart series that would have been released on Nintendo DS. This was led by a developer known as Yute Saito, who would later reveal details of the project at a developer console in 2018. Yute was good friends with both the president of Nintendo at the time, Satoru Iwata, and the devil himself, Shigeru Miyamoto. He stated the group would often go get tea together.
Would you like some tea, Cloud Frog? Yes, please, Eric. Wow, you're so cool.
When in reality, we all know what they're really doing. Meeting up and sacrificing a goat in the basement of Nintendo offices in hopes the next Pokemon game will stay above the 20 million sell threshold mark they set, even though the games are suffering in quality. Yeah, I heard for Scarlet and Violet, they had to sacrifice the whole population's worth of goats in Japan for that to reach its sales goal, so y'all still went and bought it. I'm just saying, it works. Regardless, at one of these tea time with the boys, Saito brought up an idea he would have that would revolutionize the Mario Kart series. He explained to the Nintendo boys that he took up a hobby of sculpting chunks of metal. I'm not even sure what that even means, to be honest. You have to heat the metal first? Or is he just rubbing down really hot aluminum? What's happening here? Anyway, this idea made him want to implement this very niche hobby into a game. And he thought, fuck man, what better game than Mario Kart? The main gameplay idea would focus around players taking huge metal chunks and slowly sculpting them into car parts that would make their car drive and run better. Quite an ambitious idea to add depth to the Mario Kart formula, as up until that point, kart customization was very limited. I mean, even the latest one, the kart customization is pretty shallow. There was even talk of this game having a function where players blow into the Nintendo DS sensor to cool down the metal or some shit. Miyamoto was thinking about kids being out of breath. You know how he is, and decided they wouldn't want a bunch of winded tykes playing Mario Motors, so that idea went out the window pretty quick. In terms of how deep the game got into development, I'd say it didn't see much in terms of actual development at all, as all we have to reference of this game are a few presentation conference photos. It's unknown if these slides were pulled from the game itself or just early mock-ups for what it would be presented in the final game. Saito himself says he doesn't truly know the reason the game was canceled, but I think it's likely due to Nintendo not wanting to risk their Mario Kart showing on something that has a bit more risk factor than the typical Mario Kart release. So I think they scrapped the game and went with Mario Kart DS instead. I do think Mario Motors could have a neat little DSiWare game or something if they ever resurrected it during the DS life cycle, but perhaps it was better to leave this gimmicky kart builder to rest, you know. Mario Paint 64. Mario Paint was a game I played a lot on the Super Nintendo as a kid. This thing was big if you had it too, you know? That's because you needed the extra peripherals to actually play the game. I remember this getting ordered off of eBay, and it took forever to get in because I was a kid, you know? 3 weeks as a kid is like, especially waiting on Mario product, dude. When this game finally arrived, I could not love it. I mean, I put so much emphasis on the arrival that when I got it, I just immediately fell in love, even if the game sucked. But it doesn't. This was such a great Super Nintendo game, and I still think it's one of the ones that first started to poke at my creative sides of my brain when I was a kid. So when I found out there was a Japan-only sequel that released back in the 90s, I was pretty befuddled and betrayed. Surely Japan wouldn't rob the West of a sequel to one of the best art games ever made, right? Well, they did it. It was due to the very poor release of the Nintendo 64 disk drive, or the 64DD, if you will. This was a model of the N64 that would feature a disk drive, but it's only released in Japan and did abysmal numbers in that market. Therefore, most games featured on the 64DD were Japan exclusive, since the console itself was exclusive to that region anyway. Mario Paint 64, or better known as Mario Artist Paint Studio, was one of those games that was featured on the Nintendo 64 disk drive. This game took a much different approach to the art game genre than the original Super Nintendo game. Instead of injecting unique life into the game with a bunch of extra modes and other things to do, i.e. making it feel more like an actual game and not just an art app, they kind of went with a more traditional art game for this one. They did add some cool features in, and one of my favorites is the ability to add stickers into these paintings, but these aren't just any stickers, alright? These come from many different classic games and all appear to be straight up assets from these other Nintendo games. These are the classic renders of these characters too, so to even just cycle through them to see what they look like would have been really cool. There's an animation mode too, which acts as a very early version of the flickbook game, that type meme. This would allow players to animate up to 35 frames, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is pretty impressive for the time. There's even a 3D world viewer in which you can go around on like 3 different levels and take pictures of different creatures and environments. This was a lot like Pokemon Snap at the time, but in this you can change certain textures in the environment with custom drawings and stuff. Like, see that manatee, you can probably put a dick on his back or something if you really wanted to. All in all, I feel like there could have been a few more mini games here and there with the game. I feel like it should also be more themed to the original Mario Paint, because seeing some of its uniqueness gone here and stray more back to a generic art PC program, it's a little disappointing. Early builds of the game suggest that this was the original plan, as it was being developed by a team in the UK before shortly being taken over by Nintendo's Japanese team. After the project transferred, Nintendo's Japan team seemed to scrap a lot of cool things like this early fly minigame that appears in early builds. Perhaps they could predict the 64DD's limited audience and cut the fat on this game. I think this game had great potential to be the successor to Mario Paint, but alas, it fell short because of the hardware it was released on. Also, I know this one technically did release, but I consider it a canceled project, at least for other regions of the world, because, you know, this would have been cool to play as a kid. Mario's Mission Earth. This may be the game I have the least amount of proof of, but its existence is interesting, so I still want to talk about it. Listen, Mario was no stranger to having a few less than fun educational games in his lineup. You know, Mario's Time Machine, take a Mario's Missing here, take a Mario's Missing there. These were both heavy hitters for some of the young tykes trying to brush up on their history. These fucking games, man. I hated them as a kid. They were so deceiving because they looked so fucking cool on the box art. Like, we like to talk about lost media, right? But imagine being a kid and all you know of Mario is like the 4 or 5 platformer games you played. Then you go to a video store or a flea market and you see not 1 but 2 new games featuring Mario and Luigi on the box art. And it's not very obvious that they're educational. You know, I used to flip my shit when I saw the cover for Mario Missing. I'm pretty sure I convinced my parents to get it on the spot because of that. Then I got home expecting a wild-ass platformer, a Super Mario World 3, if you will, an all-out hootenanny, and come on, people, I was excited for some plumbers defying gravity. But all I got was this washed-out retelling of some of the most boring figures in history. All while they stripped everything that made traditional Mario games fun. Like, how did they fuck up the platforming in this game? Like, I get there's an audience for this game, and I wasn't it, even when it probably should have been for me. But I feel like they knew what they were doing with this fucking box art shit, making it very obvious that, ooh, it's just another Mario game, knowing full well it's some less than stellar garbage on a cartridge. Anyway, that's my experience with Mario's Missing, and I had the fortunate curse to have never run into Mario's Time Machine in the wild, so I don't know the true extent of that game's educational torture. There's going to be a third game in the line of adventure/educational Mario games. I feel like these stand out from games like Mario Teaches Typing because these are more deceitful in their promotion. The third game in this line of games was known as Mario's Mission Earth, and it was going to take Mario to space to teach him a thing or two about our solar system. You know, something we know very little about ourselves. Shigeru said, fuck that, send that Italian fat fuck into space and actually learn what the fuck's going on up there. Yeah, this game is probably going to take the gameplay second approach like the other 2 in the series did, and, you know, be educational about space. I can only assume there's some bunk-ass rocket minigame too, like the surfing one in Mario's Time Machine. The only confirmation of this game's existence is the credits posted on the resume of the game's composer. Yeah, that's really it. Then people started putting the pieces together because the composer also worked on the aforementioned Mario's Missing. Yeah, this guy spilled the beans on what would have been the biggest educational blockbuster ever made, because he wanted a little eye candy on his resume by putting Mario's name on that shit. It's probably better this game never came out, but imagine the dope-ass cover art it would have had that could deceive thousands of Mario fans for years to come. Mario Factory. Nintendo has always played around with the idea of creation-type games. This is where you supply the player with tools in which they can create their own games and things within the game itself. Take Dreams or Little Big Planet, for example. These are modern day creation games, but Nintendo was at the forefront of this back in the day with games like Mario Paint and this canceled game called Mario Factory. The best way to describe what Mario Factory would have been is to say it was a very early attempt at what Mario Maker came to do years later. There isn't much known about the game at all, other than it was going to be used in schools as an entry into game development. It was to feature Mario-like characters and allow players to learn the basics of game design. There's only one existing screenshot of the game, and it's of a selection menu or something. Mario's Factory was meant to be released on the Super Nintendo, and this is perhaps one of the reasons that the game never came to fruition. The limitation presented on the Super Nintendo likely limited what they could implement in the game, and this is the type of game where you start feeling ambitious and want to add a bunch of stuff into the game, so I could see why they ended up just scrapping it when they hit a wall. I feel like a game like this would have been really nice back in the day, and yeah, we have Mario Maker now, but I feel like that's more for the fun of creation and less for the educational aspect. Obviously, there are plenty of games that do this now, but this would have been super rare to see, especially from a game company as successful as Nintendo back in the day. Alright, that was 6 Mario games you've probably never heard of. If you've heard of them, let me know in the comments. I don't actually care, but leave it anyway. I'll read them. I'll favorite it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I will be doing more videos soon. I am currently working on the next iceberg video, so that shall release soon. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.